Today, let's take a look at the latest The Verge website redesign. It's definitely a very bold step, so let me share what I think about it. I'm really curious about brutalist news sites. Using that style results in a slightly heavier cognitive load, and sure, they have to scream at you to even grab your attention, but is it sustainable in the long run? Let's explore. Before we start, I have to admit something. I was a big fan of this website back when it started and when Josh Topolsky was co-running it. However, in recent years, for a tech blog, they became a little too obsessed with politics, so I started to visit that site less and less. Still, there were some truly industry-shaking stories published by The Verge, and they have an important place in the internet history. I'm going to preview the site on a laptop, on a large 4K display, on a mobile phone and on a tablet, so we're gonna see all the possible experiences. It's done in a semi-Neue Brutalist style, with bold, very sharp and stark and contrasty colors, big typography, pretty quirky fonts, and some weird, odd layout choices sometimes. Interestingly enough, a very well-known Polish media company went with a Brutalist redesign for their main website a while back, and well, they kind of changed it or dialed it back right now. That means that maybe in the long run that design didn't really work for them. This is what they started with, and then this is the new version, and as you can see, it uses pretty standard buttons right now, and a lot of those Neue Brutalist elements got removed or replaced. Maybe it's Jacob's law in action, and being too different visually can also be a little bit too much for the user. The first thing that I noticed about the main page is that it's really text heavy. There is a lot of longer paragraphs and it's pretty condensed and it can be a little bit hard to read. Plus there is a lot of different colored backgrounds and different elements in there, so it's a little bit overwhelming visually. I think the cognitive load here is pretty high. One thing I quickly noticed in the article is that when there is a YouTube video on the top, it takes a while to load and there is no placeholder image in the background. I find these quotes on the left side a little bit distracting. And especially when you get to here, you see the quote, you see the recent articles, you see an ad and some top articles all in the same spot, and this is very heavy, very busy and very difficult to actually read. And then when you scroll a little bit down, you also get a newsletter sign up and another ad. And these things popping up like that are a little bit annoying. I really like the GIF style video integration within the text. The photos, however, look a little bit odd sticking out to the left like that. I understand that it's basically to kind of grab our focus a little bit again and recapture it because the attention spans are so low now. Then the menu is a little bit weird too, because the selection on hover is not really accessible. It just changes the opacity a little bit. It should be more visible than that because some people might simply not see it at all. Then on expansion it does the same thing with barely visible hover effect. Now let's go into a section, and the first thing I noticed here is that this weird cutoff at the bottom of the section title, it's just weird. I don't know why it's there. The other thing is some of the content overlapping the image without a proper darkening of it looks weird. The real world AI issue is barely visible on that background. Some articles have an excerpt and some don't, which also makes this a little bit unbalanced. In the article, the layout choices are really weird. The whole top part of this page looks like a huge mess to me, and it's really hard to really understand what's going on there. And in most places like this, the metadata and comments sections basically look out of place, and all of that alignment looks kind of random. Vertical text like that, it's mostly decoration because it's impossible to read because of that small font. What I like, however, is a dedicated copy link to the article button next to it. This is a very cool idea. But the articles themselves also have that category vertically. It's really difficult to read. It probably would have worked better even as an icon. Sure, text is easier to understand, but not that way. And now let's quickly go to the inspector and add a little bit of more breathing room in there, and you can see that it already is looking a lot better. It's too condensed for my tastes. So I think the main issue with this is a little bit too much chaos and some problems with readability. Some things are too condensed and too densely packed, and some layout choices actually make it much harder to understand what's going on the screen. I think it's a bold move, and I think it's really good to move and push new boundaries with the design industry, even if they're gonna be failed attempts and they're gonna revert back to something more conservative in terms of the layout. There are issues with readability and sometimes with scanning as well, with pretty weird column and layout choices, but I think many of these issues can be resolved by simply listening to the users and making changes. What do you think? Are brutalist styles only good for creative artsy portfolios, or can they work on a news site as well? Do you think The Verge will stick with this strong approach, or they'll dial it back a bit? Let me know in the comments, and as always, have a beautiful day.